They say that love is the ultimate act of trust. But what happens when that trust is misplaced? What if the very person you believed was your soulmate, the one who promised to protect your heart, was hiding a dark and dangerous secret? And what if a single, innocent act, like sharing a wedding photo online, could lead to a life-shattering tragedy? This isn't just a story about love gone wrong. It's about the terrifying power of deception, the risks of ignoring red flags, and the devastating consequences of trusting the wrong person. In today's case, we'll take you through a chilling journey, one where love, betrayal, and murder collide in the most unexpected way. She was a woman many could relate to, strong, hopeful, and resilient, even after years of heartbreak and loneliness. She had spent much of her life waiting for her own happy ending, a love story that could stand the test of time. And when she finally found him, he seemed like everything she'd ever dreamed of. Handsome, charming, attentive, he swept her off her feet and reignited the spark she thought was lost forever. Their whirlwind romance led to an intimate wedding, a honeymoon on the shores of paradise, and what should have been the beginning of a beautiful future together. But beneath the surface of this picture-perfect story was a chilling reality. One moment of joy, a single photo uploaded to Facebook, unraveled the carefully constructed facade of the man she thought she knew. Within hours, that photo set off a deadly chain of events, exposing a web of lies and leaving her family devastated by her tragic death. How could something as simple as sharing a photo, a moment of happiness, lead to such an unthinkable end? What was her husband so desperate to hide that he would take such extreme measures to keep his secret? And how did her decision to press post turn into a fatal mistake? Here at True Crime Cases HQ, we dig deep into the most shocking, heart-wrenching, and complex cases of betrayal and crime. This story will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about love and trust. By the end, you'll see how a single moment of joy turned into a nightmare, and you'll understand why the seemingly innocent choices we make can sometimes carry the heaviest consequences. If you're as captivated by true crime stories as we are, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. By subscribing, you'll never miss another case that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Give this video a like if you're ready to dive into today's story. And let's begin. She was the kind of person whose presence could light up a room. Her laugh was contagious, and her warmth drew people in like a comforting embrace. At 52 years old, she had endured more than her fair share of heartbreak. Failed relationships, broken promises, and years of loneliness had left their mark. But she never gave up hope. Deep down, she believed love was still out there, waiting for her, somewhere in the world. Her social media was a quiet reflection of her life. Snapshots of peaceful moments, inspiring quotes, and heartfelt messages of resilience. Friends admired her strength, the way she always cheered them on, even as she silently longed for the happiness they often shared online. Wedding photos, anniversary celebrations, family milestones. She had watched it all, wondering when her time would come. And then, on a whim, she decided to do something for herself. She booked a spontaneous trip to Colombia, a vacation she hoped would be a fresh start. She wasn't looking for love, just a change of scenery and a chance to reset. But as fate would have it, the trip would change her life in ways she could never have imagined. It was a warm evening at the resort, the kind of night where the air carried the faint scent of tropical flowers and ocean breezes. She had been sitting alone by the poolside bar, sipping on a cocktail and watching the sun dip below the horizon. That's when he appeared. He was everything she had dreamed of. Tall, handsome, and with a charisma that could make anyone feel like the center of the universe. His voice was smooth and soothing as he struck up a conversation, asking her about her life and sharing pieces of his own, or so she thought. He had a way of making her feel seen, truly seen, in a way she hadn't felt in years. That night, they talked for hours. He made her laugh, a rare, genuine laugh that felt like the first in forever. There was something magnetic about him, a combination of charm and mystery that left her intrigued and wanting more. By the end of the evening, she knew she wanted to see him again. The days that followed were nothing short of magical. They explored local markets, shared candlelit dinners under the stars, and danced to live music as the waves crashed in the background. He was attentive and kind, hanging on to her every word and making her feel like she was the only person in the world. For the first time in years, she felt alive, like the part of her that had been numb and guarded was waking up again. Love had found her when she least expected it, and she wasn't about to let it slip away. When the trip ended, she feared the connection would fade, but it didn't. They exchanged numbers and promised to keep in touch. What began as casual messages quickly turned into late-night calls that stretched into the early morning hours. Despite the miles that separated them, their bond only grew stronger. Little did she know, the man who had swept her off her feet was not the answer to her prayers, but the start of a nightmare she never saw coming. Fourth, subtle red flags, suspense phase. At first, their love story seemed perfect, almost too good to be true. She had finally found the happiness she had been yearning for, and her heart was full of hope. But as the relationship progressed, subtle cracks began to form, small, seemingly insignificant moments that she brushed aside in the name of love and compromise. He had always been a little guarded, but that was part of his allure. He claimed to value privacy, especially when it came to social media. He described it as a toxic space filled with people who thrived on negativity and jealousy. "Why would we want to invite strangers into something so special?" he would say with a charming smile. At the time, it seemed reasonable. But his insistence on staying offline went further than she expected. He refused to take photos together, always finding an excuse to avoid the camera. "Let's just live in the moment," he'd say, brushing off her requests with a casual laugh. She reasoned that it was a personal quirk, a harmless preference that didn't define their relationship. When she tried to ask about his past, he gave vague answers, often shifting the conversation back to her. He mentioned a few unlucky relationships and a difficult upbringing, but he avoided sharing any real details. She chalked it up to a man who didn't like dwelling on the past, and told herself it wasn't worth pressing further. Yet, there were moments that left her uneasy. Sometimes, she'd catch him staring into the distance, his expression unreadable, as if his mind were elsewhere. When she asked what he was thinking, he'd wave it off with a reassuring grin and a quick joke. His evasiveness lingered in her mind, but she dismissed it, not wanting to spoil the joy she felt in their growing love. His requests for privacy extended beyond the digital world. He hesitated to introduce her to many of his friends or family, claiming he preferred to keep things simple and intimate. For someone who had always been open about her life, this felt strange. But again, she chose to respect his boundaries, convincing herself that everyone had their own way of handling relationships. Despite these lingering doubts, she clung to the idea of their love. After all, he had never shown any signs of anger or impatience. He was calm, attentive, and reassuring, the kind of partner she had always dreamed of. She told herself that no relationship was perfect and that compromises were part of building something lasting. Little did she know, the boundaries she thought were rooted in personal preference were actually hiding something far more sinister. These subtle red flags weren't quirks, they were warnings. But love has a way of silencing our instincts, and she was too captivated by the dream to see the danger looming just beneath the surface. The wedding day was everything she had ever dreamed of, intimate, heartfelt, and surrounded by the people who mattered most to her. She had spent years attending the weddings of friends and loved ones, quietly longing for her own moment to walk down the aisle. Now, that moment had finally arrived. The chapel was small and filled with fresh flowers. their delicate fragrance blending with the soft music playing in the background. She wore a flowing white gown that seemed to glow as she walked toward him, her heart full of love and hope. As she stood before him, exchanging vows in trembling voices, she couldn't help but feel like she was living in a fairy tale. For her, this day was a celebration of everything she had overcome and the love she had finally found. For him, it was something else entirely, a calculated step in a plan she didn't yet understand. The reception was equally intimate, a candlelit dinner shared with close family and friends. They toasted to their future, laughed, and danced beneath twinkling lights. She couldn't stop smiling, her joy radiating in every moment. But there was one thing missing that gnawed at her, the absence of photos. While her guests snapped pictures of the day, she refrained from taking any herself. He had gently reminded her of his feelings about privacy, and, out of respect, she agreed to keep their special day between them and those present. Still, a part of her wished she could share this moment with the world, to tell everyone that her dream had finally come true. As the night ended, and they prepared to leave for their honeymoon, she told herself that the memories in her heart were more valuable than any photograph or social media post. Her love for him was more important than a fleeting online celebration. The honeymoon was like something out of a postcard. Their suite overlooked the ocean, where waves gently lapped at the shore, and the air was filled with the scent of salt and blooming flowers. Every morning, golden sunlight streamed through the windows, waking them softly to another day in paradise. She felt like she was living a dream, a life she had once feared would never be hers. This was everything she had worked for, waited for, and hoped for. As she lay next to him one morning, watching him sleep, her heart swelled with gratitude. She reached for her phone, intending to capture the moment, not for anyone else, but for herself. Scrolling through the photos from the wedding, she paused at a candid shot taken by one of their guests. The two of them looked so happy, their smiles wide and genuine. Her heart filled with pride and joy. She couldn't resist. She began typing a caption. "Just got married. I love you, baby." She hit post and set her phone down, unaware that this simple act would change everything. Within the hour, their honeymoon paradise would be shattered, and the man she believed was her forever would reveal a side of himself she never imagined existed. The first sign that something was wrong came not long after she posted the photo. He woke up to his phone buzzing repeatedly. Groggy and confused, he grabbed it and frowned as he read a series of frantic messages. One, in particular, stood out. "What kind of mistake have you just made?" He scrolled down further, his heart racing. Another message followed. "Check her Facebook now." "Why did you post that?" he demanded, holding his phone out as though it were evidence of a crime. She blinked, caught off guard by his tone. "What do you mean?" "I wanted to share our happiness," she said softly, unsure why he was so upset. "I told you I don't like social media," he shouted, his voice growing louder with each word. "Take it down, now." Her confusion turned to hurt. "It's just a wedding picture," she said, trying to reason with him. "Why are you so upset? This is my life too." But her words only seemed to fuel his panic. "You don't understand," he snapped, pacing the room as his mind raced. "You've ruined everything." She stood her ground, her voice trembling but firm. "Ruined what? Why is this such a big deal? What are you hiding?" His eyes narrowed, his jaw tightening as he stopped pacing and turned to face her. The calm, loving man she thought she knew was gone, replaced by someone she barely recognized. "Just delete it," he growled through clenched teeth, stepping closer to her. "No," she said, her voice steadier now. "I won't delete it. This is supposed to be the happiest time of my life, and I'm not going to hide it." Her defiance sent him over the edge. His desperation boiled into rage, his voice rising as he shouted, "You don't know what you've done." She took a step back, fear flickering in her eyes. "Why does this matter so much to you? What are you so afraid of?" He couldn't answer, not without revealing the truth he had worked so hard to keep buried. And in that moment, his fear and anger collided in a way that would change both their lives forever. As she turned to walk away, her phone in hand, he lunged forward, grabbing her wrist. "Give me the phone," he demanded, his grip tightening. "No," she cried, struggling to pull free. "This isn't you. What are you doing?" But he wasn't listening. His focus was singular, to erase the post, to protect the fragile house of cards he had built. He wrenched the phone from her hand, his fingers trembling as he tried to unlock it. "Stop it!" she shouted, tears streaming down her face. "You're scaring me." Her words didn't reach him. His mind was consumed by the need to erase the evidence, to make the threat disappear. In his desperation, reason gave way to instinct. When she reached out to grab her phone back, he shoved her. It wasn't planned, but it didn't matter. Time seemed to slow as she stumbled backward towards the low balcony railing. Her eyes widened in shock, her arms flailing as she fought to regain her balance. "No!" she gasped, her voice breaking. And then she was gone. The sound of her body hitting the stone pathway below was sharp and final. He froze, staring over the railing, his heart pounding as he tried to process what had just happened. Below, guests rushed to her side, their panicked voices rising as they realized the gravity of the situation. Someone shouted for help. A man knelt beside her, searching for a pulse. But the look on his face said everything. She was gone. Upstairs, he staggered back into the room, muttering to himself, "It was an accident. I didn't mean to." But it was too late. The woman who had loved him, trusted him, and believed in him, was gone. And the man who had vowed to protect her had destroyed her instead. In the immediate aftermath, he tried to hold on to the narrative that it was all just a tragic accident. When the police arrived, he sat slumped in a chair, his face pale and his hands trembling. His lips moved silently as if repeating a mantra to himself. "It wasn't supposed to happen. I didn't mean it." But his attempts to feign innocence quickly began to unravel. Witnesses at the resort stepped forward, recounting the heated argument they had overheard. One guest described the chilling moment she saw the victim fall, her arms flailing as she struggled to stay balanced before hitting the ground below. Another mentioned hearing his angry voice moments before the tragedy. The authorities wasted no time launching an investigation. As they dug deeper, a disturbing truth began to emerge. The man she thought she had married, the one who had swept her off her feet, wasn't who he claimed to be. Phone records painted the first piece of the picture. Calls to multiple women, older, financially stable, and eerily similar to his late wife, began to surface. These women had stories of whirlwind romances, charming words, and eventual financial devastation. One by one, they came forward, describing how he had vanished with their money and broken their trust. Financial transactions revealed a clear pattern. He had drained large sums from bank accounts, leaving his victims in financial ruin. For some, the loss was so severe that they were still recovering years later. But the most damning evidence came from his lack of a digital footprint. His absence from social media wasn't about privacy. It was a calculated move to avoid being traced by his past victims. The wedding photo that she had posted, the one he was so desperate to have deleted, was the first digital link tying him to his real identity. For years, he had operated as a ghost, slipping from one woman to the next, leaving no trace of his existence behind. But that single post changed everything. It exposed him in a way he couldn't control, and the life he had built on lies began to collapse. Detectives uncovered a shocking history of deception. He wasn't just a charming husband. He was a professional con artist, preying on vulnerable women who were searching for love and stability. His charm, his attentiveness, his calculated gestures of affection, they were all tools of manipulation, honed over years of practice. Past victims came forward to share their experiences. One woman, her voice shaking, recounted how he had promised her the world before disappearing with her savings. Another admitted she had almost reported him, but had been too ashamed of falling for his lies. Piece by piece, the puzzle came together, revealing the dark truth behind the man she had loved. Her decision to share her joy online, the simple act of posting a photo, had unintentionally brought his reign of deception to an end. For the authorities, the case was clear. This wasn't just a tragic accident. It was the culmination of a calculated scheme that had finally unraveled. And while her family mourned the loss of someone they loved dearly, they also knew that her courage in sharing that post had exposed the truth, preventing him from hurting anyone else. The man who had promised her a lifetime of happiness was now facing a lifetime of justice. The courtroom was packed on the day of the trial. Her family and friends filled the rows, their faces etched with grief and anger. They wanted answers, justice, and closure for the woman they had lost, a woman who had trusted a man who turned out to be a predator. The prosecutor wasted no time painting a chilling picture of the man on trial. They described him as a calculated and cold-hearted con artist, someone who preyed on vulnerable women for financial gain. This wasn't a crime of passion, the prosecutor argued. It was the culmination of a long history of manipulation, deception, and greed. Evidence after evidence was presented. The prosecution highlighted his pattern of behavior: romantic getaways, promises of love, and sudden disappearances accompanied by drained bank accounts. Witnesses testified about his charming facade and the emotional and financial destruction he had left behind. The wedding photo, the one he had been so desperate to have deleted, became a centerpiece of the case. It was the key that unraveled his double life, tying him to past victims and revealing the extent of his crimes. What was meant to be a celebration of love had exposed the truth about the man she had married. The defense, however, tried to spin a different narrative. They claimed it was all a tragic accident, a heated argument fueled by emotions and poor judgment. He didn't mean to hurt her, the defense attorney argued, their tone pleading for sympathy. This was a mistake, not murder, but the prosecution dismantled this argument piece by piece. They pointed to his history, his refusal to allow photos, and his increasingly erratic behavior leading up to her death. This wasn't about a moment of poor judgment, they argued. It was about a man trying to protect his lies at any cost, even if it meant taking a life. The emotional climax of the trial came when her family gave their impact statements. Her sister stood before the courtroom, clutching a photograph of her late sibling. Through tears, she spoke of the joy her sister had found in what she believed was a second chance at love, and how that hope had been cruelly stolen. She believed in love, her sister said, her voice breaking. Even after all the heartbreak, she still believed. And he took that from her. He took her from us. Her brother followed, his voice heavy with pain and anger. We trusted him because she trusted him. But he wasn't the man he pretended to be. He robbed us of the chance to see her happy, to see her grow old. And for that, he deserves to answer. The jury deliberated for hours, but when they returned, the verdict was unanimous: guilty. The judge delivered a harsh sentence: life in prison without the possibility of parole. The gavel struck the desk, a sound that echoed through the room, signaling the end of a trial that had laid bare the depths of one man's deception and the tragic loss of an innocent woman. As he was led away in handcuffs, his face was devoid of the charm that had once fooled so many. His expression was hollow, his mask of confidence shattered. The man who had preyed on love was now left with nothing, his freedom gone, his lies exposed, and the weight of justice bearing down on him. For her family, the sentence brought some closure, but it could never bring her back. The man who had promised her a future had stolen it instead. Her story became a painful reminder that trust is a gift. one that can be devastatingly fragile in the wrong hands. Her story is more than just a tragedy. It's a sobering reminder of how trust, when placed in the wrong hands, can have devastating consequences. The victim was a woman who believed in love, who wanted nothing more than to share her joy with the world. But in doing so, she uncovered the darkness that lay hidden behind the man she thought was her soulmate. It's easy to look back and wonder why she didn't see the warning signs, the insistence on privacy, the vague answers about his past, the avoidance of photos. These were all red flags. But love has a way of clouding judgment. When we care deeply for someone, we often overlook the things that don't add up, convincing ourselves that compromise is the price of happiness. Her story forces us to ask difficult questions about trust and boundaries. At what point does someone's need for privacy stop being about personal preference and start becoming a sign of something more sinister? How well do we really know the people we love? And how far would we go to protect a love we believe in, even when the warning signs are there? The Facebook post that sparked this tragedy was meant to celebrate a new chapter in her life, a moment of happiness she had waited decades to find. Instead, it became the key to unraveling the lies and exposing the man who had deceived her. It's a haunting reminder of how the simplest actions can have the most profound consequences. For her family, the pain of losing her is a wound that will never fully heal. But they have turned their grief into purpose, becoming advocates for others who might be vulnerable to manipulation and deceit. Her sister speaks out at conferences and on online platforms, raising awareness about the warning signs of emotional abuse. Her brother supports organizations that help prevent scams and exploitation. Her death was a tragedy, but her story serves as a powerful reminder for all of us to listen to our instincts, question the things that don't feel right, and protect ourselves from those who might not have our best intentions at heart. As we reflect on her life and the lessons her story teaches, we are left with one enduring truth. Trust is precious, but in the wrong hands, it can become a weapon. At True Crime Cases HQ, we share these stories not just to uncover the truth, but to learn from them. What about you? Have you ever ignored red flags in a relationship because you wanted so badly to believe in someone? Or have you ever questioned why someone was so desperate to keep their life hidden? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. By turning on notifications, you'll stay updated with more stories of betrayal, deception, and justice. Our next case will take you even deeper into the complexities of trust and love, a story that will leave you questioning everything. Stay safe, stay vigilant, and thank you for watching True Crime Cases HQ.